And so I thought this would be a really great opportunity to promote the profession and all the wonderful work that school counselors do every day. But then also for current students, prospective students, just kind of learn a little bit more of what the day-to-day looks like, because it does look different whether you're at an elementary school, a middle school, a high school. And a unique feature of our program is that sometimes you want to pursue becoming a school counselor and also licensure in either marriage and family or mental health. And so we also have a panelist that represents that, that route if that's something that you're interested in doing. So I don't want to take up too much time, just because we do have an hour. There will be time between 6:30 and 7 for kind of more informal networking. So to kind of linger, have another snack, talk with them, just kind of connect in that kind of way and network. And then from there you're on your way. If you have to leave at 6:30, that's fine. Otherwise you're invited to stay until 7. Our lovely panelists here that we have so far, I'll start at the end. We have Talia, who is a recent graduate of PBA, and she's currently serving as a school counselor at Gateway High School in Osceola County. Prior to that, she did work as an English teacher both in middle school and high school settings in Orange and Polk counties. So thank you for being here. Next to her we have Ruth. Ruth is also someone that graduated, hey, come on in, you're fine, in 2017, and she's currently working in her first year at Horizon Middle School, also in Osceola County. And Ruth is bilingual, so is serving the students in Osceola both in English and in Spanish. Okay. Next to Ruth, welcome Ruth. Next to Ruth, we have Daynell. She graduated from PBA in 2012. She's currently serving as her third year at Freedom High School here in Orange County. But she's also a licensed mental health counselor, so she does some private practice on the side, right? So welcome, thank you. And then here on the end, we have Evelyn, who's been a professional school counselor for about 4 years now. She's currently serving in an elementary school setting, but she's also served in 6th to 12th grades for either charter school or public middle schools. And you're currently in Polk County, correct?
Correct.
Okay, welcome, thank you. Okay. So my students that are currently in their internship that are in the schools this semester generated a very long list of questions. And I've pared down those questions. Some are a little bit more open-ended, so that I'll give you time to elaborate. And then I have a speed round of questions to kind of get more information, but more within like one word or short phrases, okay? So I'm going to start with the open-ended questions, and then I'll decide if we have time for all of them or if we need to shift into more of a speed round. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. And then if there's still time, then we can kind of do more open-ended question and answer, and then of course we'll have our networking. But thank you so much everyone for being here. Okay, so the first question is to please describe what your day-to-day looks like, and in no particular order, whoever would like to go, and not everyone has to answer either.
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you.
For the elementary setting where I'm at now, day-to-day is never the same. Every day can be a range of being able to do MTSS data or meeting with parents and teachers or police calls, DCF calls. It just ranges. It's not a cookie cutter type situation in elementary, and the difference is crazy compared to middle and high school. Having been able to do all three, it's like night and day. So, I mean, I can share real quick that for high school, the college and career component was my favorite. Middle school, you get to do more actual counseling. And in elementary school, it's all about data collection, identifying students that might have issues with learning, putting out a lot of fires. You're considered part of the administration, so you have to fill in a lot of gaps sometimes when the principal needs or the assistant principal needs.
And just a quick follow-up question, are you the only counselor at your
Yes.
school? Okay. How many students do you serve?
We're almost at 500. It's a very small school, very low socioeconomic demographic in the school. A lot of families this year that came from Puerto Rico. So I do a lot of parent conferences, a lot. And then having to sort of guide the teachers with their interaction with the parents is a big component of my day as well. And your best allies will be your school psychologist and having a good rapport with your teachers. Because in the elementary, they rely so much on data. Before there was a lot of testing like K-bits and stuff like that. Now they focus on data collection and MTSS information. And if you don't have a good rapport with your teachers, it's like pulling teeth to get data from them. And that's a big component of elementary. Usually in middle school, the kids have already been identified if they have a learning disability, if they have IEPs or 504s. All that takes place most of the time in elementary. It does happen in middle, but the majority happens in elementary.
Thank you.
I guess I'm next. I'm going to echo what she said. On a day-to-day basis, my day could start off one way and end one way, and I will have my agenda, but then my boss has his agenda, and then my team lead has her agenda. So really, for me, what I've tried to do is just be really flexible to what the day's going to bring, because yes, there's deadlines, yes, there's things that are required of us on a district level, but then there's other things required on the student level and the teacher level. So I just really try to make sure that I'm prioritizing. I think that's a main key for me, is prioritizing and making sure that I'm getting everything done in a reasonable time span.
So for me, I'm in the middle school, so I would agree with them. My day looks very different every day. I can come in the morning and I can have a to-do. I'm a very structured person, so I have a to-do list. I have this, and I can end the day doing probably not even half of my list, because a crisis happen. A teacher calls me on the phone, this student is crying, I gotta either go or they send me the student. So it's you get pulled to many different directions. You just never know what the day is gonna bring. My school, I'm in a middle school, so I do deal with a lot of crisis. In the school that I'm working at, we were, I don't know if we still are, but we were #1 in threat assessments, which means we had the highest number of crises with suicide and things like that. So fortunately, I'm part of a pretty good team. We're 4 counselors, so I'm very fortunate to be part of a good team, which that helps in your first year especially. But my day, like especially at the beginning of the school year, it was threat assessment, like it was a lot. So it has slowed down now more, but we do participate in parent-teacher conferences. I do 504s too. I had to do the 504, a lot of reevaluation and things like that. And I do get to do a lot of counseling because I'm in the middle school, and I have duties too. So my day can vary between any of those.
Okay, I'm in a high school in Osceola County. So like most of you all said, the day is different every single day. In Osceola County, I feel like we probably do more threat assessments or crisis than maybe some other counties, because I was really shocked at how many cases of suicide calls we had, especially in the beginning of the school year. It kind of slowed down since the new year started. So you could walk in, and the first thing in the morning is the principal calling you saying, I have this student, they wrote a note on social media, it got to us, so now you have to deal with that regardless of the to-do list. Like I have also, it could be a 504 meeting, it could be anything. I also serve as the FIT liaison at my school, so families in transition. So a lot of times my day deals with those students, or their parents may come in and let us know that they don't have food or they need toiletries, etc. So it's different every day, but if you're open to that, I think it'll be enjoying.
It definitely sounds like you won't get bored in this profession. And so there's that variety that keeps you on your toes, keeps you thinking, keeps you engaged. And depending on where you are, there are different needs, especially developmentally. And so when you're at an elementary school, your team looks different than at the middle or high school. And so there's also a lot of engagement with parents, and that makes sense because the parents are there to advocate for their children. And at that age, they don't really necessarily know how to do that for themselves, right? And so then being able to assist the teachers and staff to be able to facilitate that process is a definite skill set. And then at the middle school, kind of that social emotional piece tends to come out more as we know about pre-adolescence and adolescence. That's a definite need. And then at high school, we're starting thinking more about what's going to happen. We're going to get them graduated, but then how are we setting them up for success later on in life, whether it's career or college readiness? All right, so we're going to move on, and this is just kind of, you can be honest, and also let's, not scare anybody away. Thinking about your time that you spent in your graduate program and all the classes that you took, theory or theoretical orientation was something that was kind of drilled by your professors. So what would you say was the theoretical orientation that you landed on, and does that come out in your work at all in your roles as school counselors?
Mine was CBT, and basically because the interaction with the student, you want to make them a part of whatever is going on with them, and making it a goal-oriented contract sort of type of situation gives them some accountability, gives them acknowledgement, and it makes the conversations go a lot easier because they feel like they're being heard. Because like, well, you tell me, what do you think is going to be a better way for you to handle the situation in the classroom without, becoming violent or whatever.
So CBT being cognitive behavioral therapy, it gives them some tools and it's a little bit more structured, and then you tailor it to them and help really engage them in that way to problem solve.
Right.
Yeah, awesome.
So mine was solution focused. And that kind of weaves itself into the way that I work with my students. I even use it with staff members because I not only get students coming to me, but I get teachers that are completely overwhelmed, that have students that are failing and they don't really know what to do with them. So that comes out a lot when I'm really sitting down and, okay, let's make a plan to see how best to get this student motivated or for them to be successful in whatever subject area that is. And then a lot of times I invite the parents to be a part of that conversation, because as much as we want to use our own skill set, it's really down to that student and helping and working as a team to get that student motivated. So I use solution focus quite a bit.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So for me, I at the end of the program, I ended up liking Gestalt therapy, but I don't really use it that much. I mean, you can't use it in a school setting because you don't want to do that in a school, especially in the middle school. So I find myself using a lot of brief therapy with the kids. I have used play therapy as well. I do have art stuff in my office, and I have used it few times. But I incline more with brief, because in the school setting, you get 15 minutes, 20 minutes with a student. You can't be digging in too deep and doing all these things because they gotta go back to class. So brief therapy or solution focus is what I use the most.
Mine's just gonna sound so like non-counselor, but I just go with the flow. Like, depending on who I have in my office. Sometimes I'll lean more towards brief therapy because we have them for like 15, 20 minutes. But naturally, I'm like very relational, like person-centered. So sometimes I'll have students in my office for like an hour. Yeah. And luckily at our school, I don't know if it's just like high schools in Osceola County, they kind of like respect the appointments that the students have with their counselors, so we don't really get like any pushback. So a lot of times they're in there and we just like dig through it, and I make that referral to outside counseling. But I go with the flow,
Thank you. So sobriety, that's great. Meaning that you get to decide who you are as a school counselor. There is not one set way, there's not the only right way, and so you get to decide what fits you and your personality and your approach. Okay. So moving on, what do you enjoy the most, or what is your favorite thing about being a professional school counselor?
For me, it varied on the assignment that I had. So for this assignment, the amount of hugs that you get in a day from the little ones is such a great feeling, especially when you're feeling so overwhelmed 10 minutes before because you're dealing with a child reporting abuse, and that can take a toll on you. And so you need that balance to see the good side of the children, not just what they're going through outside of the school. And in the elementary level, you get so many hugs. It's a great feeling. That's my favorite thing.
That pure innocence.
I think mine would have to be graduation. Especially my first year as a high school counselor. I mean, it was a whirlwind until I got to the Amway Center and I was like, okay, this is what it's about. Because then you get to see the kids, you get to see their families. And I'm like choking up thinking about it because you just see this journey all year and then that's it. And they walk across the stage and then they start life. So I think that's probably my favorite. So.
Yeah, for me, I would say when you really see the impact you're making on the students, that's my favorite thing. Like, especially like you said, like sometimes you do get overwhelmed in this job. It's challenging and you can get easily discouraged because you just do so many things, and it's a position that is it can be unappreciated at times. Your work goes very unnoticed. But when I have kids come to me, Miss, thank you for this, thank you for listening to me. Just little comments like that, they just make my day. And that's just what this is about. So I really like, that's what kids mean, like this is what I'm here for. I'm here for the students, and they need counseling, especially in middle school. It's important for them to have a connection with somebody, at least one person. You never know, that makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
My favorite part would have to be like the moments where they get it. Whether it's just like understanding something about themselves, where they pass their SAT, they make, a certain grade, they bring their GPA up. Just the moments where they get it and they come to an understanding of themselves in some new way is my favorite part, because you're able to see that development and that growth.
So then on the flip side, what might be your least favorite thing about the job?
I have two things there. Having to call DCF, it can be a long, drawn-out process. It's not just you make a call. Sometimes you have to stay with the student, you have to wait for the police to show up if they're not released to the parents, released to the bus. It varies the reasons you have to call, so it varies the length of time that you're there having to deal with the situation. The second thing is the pushback that you get from teachers who don't understand your role as a school counselor. And when you're new to a school, they try to bamboozle me a couple of times and give me tasks that were not counselor related. But by this time, I knew to stand my ground, and I just printed out the ASCA National Guidelines for a School Counselor, and I put it in every teacher's mailbox. So that they could have a clearer picture of what my role is and what my role isn't. And my biggest role that I do not want to be involved in is discipline. Because that is not my role. Even though sometimes as administrators, they want you to step in. And the same way they push me back, I push back on that one. So those are the two things that
Thank you.
I have two things also. Number one would be we get interrupted a lot. So it's hard for you to stay focused on one task without someone interrupting and you shifting your focus to something else. So for me, I like to get things done one thing at a time. I mean, yes, I can multitask, but I would much rather get everything done at once. But again, you have to be so flexible to just be willing to jump into a different area when you're called upon. So at times that can get really frustrating. And then number two, a lot of times in a high school, parents have had enough. They've been with this child since elementary and obviously, have been going on ups and downs and discipline issues, and by the time that student gets to high school, their parents are just kind of like, all right, I'm tired. So they rely a lot on the counselor to kind of fill in that parental gap, and that's where I have to draw a lot of boundaries and put the onus on them to really motivate their child and enforce discipline at home. Because I can't, and I always tell them, I can lead the horse to water, but I can't make him drink. So as much as I can plan out some sort of education, goal for them to get them graduated, I can't force them to do the work. So really that's the part that gets a little challenging.
I also have 2 things I can say. So the number one thing I don't like is duty. I'm gonna be honest. Like, in my job, I have to do so much duty that it's really the part, especially lunch duty. I do have to do lunch duty for 48 minutes. That's our periods are 48 minutes, so lunch lasts 48 minutes. So that's probably my least favorite part of the day. We do have morning duty and afternoon duty, but it's not too bad because it's not too long. And we do have passing duty where we had to stand in the courtyard or whatever, watching the students. And I just don't like it because, especially lunch duty, because it puts me in a position of I have to kind of like discipline in a way. I don't really do it much, but if I see a student breaking the rules, I have to say something. And also I get pulled sometimes for subbing, which is my least favorite thing to do. Sometimes they put you in classrooms when teachers calling sick, they can't find a sub. So I usually, they can use you because I'm in the middle school. I can sub in 1 or 2, maybe 1 period. I'm part of a very good team, so sometimes we just you take 1 period, you take the next period. So we kind of work it like that, but I don't like it, and I really try to advocate for myself on that. Like, no, I have this going on. And then the next thing is I forgot the next thing.
Bless you.
That was too. It really touched the nerve.
Oh my God.
I would be mad too, so. Yeah. It's crazy. My least favorite thing about my job is I don't like doing things the same thing more than once, as in not like different tasks, but if I have to type up this paper, I would like to do it, right the first time. And if I don't have all the correct information, I can't do it right the first time. So then I might have to do it 3 times or 4 times. So doing the same task in that way over and over again is something that's a bit irritating to me. And then that relates to scheduling. So when I have to redo a schedule 3 or 4 times, because like the kids as well as the parents and sometimes the teachers, they think it's just like a seamless match. But when you have to do schedules in high schools, it's like sometimes you have to take out every single class and then redo it, and so that's my least favorite.
Focus in Osceola County is 100 times better than focus in Polk County. Just so you know.
Because it's the first year with focus in Polk, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of Osceola has a lot of functionalities, especially the counselor tab. Polk County doesn't have any of that. So it's a lot easier for you to do schedules.
So it sounds like, there are parts of the job that are required that aren't necessarily why you're in it. However, the best part of the job is what keeps you going. So you're a reason why. And so us being a Christian counseling program, you know, a lot of us feel called to this profession to work with these students. And so kind of maintaining that big picture helps us get through the day-to-day, and then the little rewards, whether it be a hug or graduation or that aha moment, or, you know, whatever the case may be, like that, those are the things to hold on to. And then you kind of learn how to roll with the punches with the other stuff, or you learn to advocate for yourself in the profession, right? And that takes time and practice. Yeah. So the next question then, let's see. So I'm going to shift gears since talking about the program here at PBA. Please share some thoughts or feelings about the experience that you had here as a student, and how that contributed to your preparation for your role as a professional school counselor.
For me, being a Christian-based school really helped me to see that every kid has a different story, no matter how similar they are, no matter what neighbor, if they're growing up in the same neighborhood or they're neighbors, they don't have the same story, because you don't know what goes on when they walk in the door at home. So you can't compare, like, why isn't Johnny like Sally, you know? It's kids are, I'm able to see them as real individuals, even though they're little people. Where back in the day, I remember kids just, like, even with my own kids, you could ask Brittany, that's me. You know, I was raised, you know, kids are to be seen and not heard. You don't talk, you know, you sit there, you don't ask for nothing. But now in this society, kids are more vocal, they're more open to share. So you hear the different things that a little 5-year-old has gone through that you can't even imagine in 5 years having gone through so many things. So when you see that little kid in the cafeteria and doing lunch duty, and he's being a little savage and jumping on the tables and throwing food, and at first I thought, oh my God, that kid is so bad. But you don't know the backstory.
The whole picture. The
Right.
context.
So then I felt convicted when I'm gonna look at this kid's file. And then you see all the trauma that the kid has gone through, you know, and then you look at them differently. When I go in the cafeteria, I'm like, hey, Nico, you know, give me a hug. And because now in the back of my mind, I don't see that kid being a little brat. I see a little kid who's had a tough life.
And I imagine that you help the teachers do that as well.
Yes, yes.
And so the program helped you kind of in that process?
Yes, and so I do many times will pull a teacher and say, listen, I know you're having trouble with this kid, but let me just give you a little bit of background that might help you see him in a different light. Because I do have teachers that come and say, like, I want this kid out of my class, I can't take him. I can't deal with it, he's too much. He's disrupting the class, there's no learning going on, I can't teach the other kids, you know? And I'm like, well, let me share a little bit of what's going on with him, and then she has a different rapport, a different approach, a different intervention, a different strategy. So that's what I got, the best thing I got at PBA.
Well, my journey was a little different. I never in a million years thought I'd be a school counselor. In fact, I did the mental health route and worked in a community agency and in a private practice setting, and I did have prior teaching experience. And then as I worked in the community agency setting, I enjoyed working in the schools with the students. So one day I was like, you know what, let me just marry the two and work as a school counselor. So I think really my experience at PBA really helped me, like she said, to really see the students as not just a student number, but as individuals. And sometimes I am called to sit with them one-on-one and take that hour and really see what's going on behind the scenes. So I think just my training and just everything I learned here at PBA really comes in handy for that.
So the main thing I got from PBA is the main thing I learned was to be present and to base it and to build relationships. So that's the main thing for me, and it goes a long way. Counseling is about the relationship that you can build with the person, the client, the student. That is the base. If you don't build that relationship, it's not gonna be effective. And I learned that I learned as soon as I started working as a guidance counselor, I started like seeing the difference of like, you really have to take the time to build this relationship with the student. Because I work in a school setting, sometimes students, when you call them to the office, they are scared because they think they're in trouble. And I tell them, like, I am not a dean and a counselor. You're not in trouble.
And like all those other adults.
Yeah, the very first student I saw, it was a female student, and she was so scared of coming to talk to the guidance counselor. And we connected so well that, like, until this day, you know, we have a very, very good relationship. So being present and really taking the time to build that relationship is gonna it's gonna really go a long way for the students that you're serving and your clients as well.
And I think being present helps in building a relationship, whether you have 2 minutes or an hour,
Yes.
right? So that's what makes the difference, and that's how you build it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Similar to Ruth, I would say making a connection because we deal with so much broken people, the parents, our coworkers, and the students. So just like realizing that we're all broken and we all need healing, and the healer is one thing that kind of like helps me not get so easily irritated or kind of understand where everyone's coming from. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I would say being connected to PBA. I don't know if it got me my job, but it definitely helped having PBA on my resume in Osceola County. I know the same for Ruth too, because a PBA graduate works for the district office in Osceola County, and so I think she kind of looks out for us, to be honest. So that was kind of nice to, you know, to have that connection and like going to the PDs and the PLCs and seeing other like graduates of PBA, like the people that were up here when we were sitting in the class. It's really nice to have that connection out there in the workforce. So
Thank you. Okay, so when you started your job, yes, I graduated, I got a job, I am a school counselor, what I spent all this time and money working on. What are some things, just one or two, no more than two please, things that you wish you would have like learned while you're in the program, including an internship, that like maybe you didn't happen, you didn't experience, you weren't aware of?
How limited they would allow you to counsel student, how much they limit that. And I wish I'd known how the process about getting a teaching certificate in order to become a school counselor. That part, the component, I really didn't get a full picture until towards the end. And that was because they changed the procedure and the policies for that when I left school.
So, yeah, there was a couple of long years in there, yeah.
For me, it was like I really thought that there would be a training or just something to show me what to do. And when I went there on the first day of school, they were like, all right, here's your office, here's your computer, and go. And I'm like, So really, I just had to, it was sink or swim. Like, it was just me just doing it and learning as I go and relying on mentors and my boss and, you know, just those powers above me to kind of navigate my way, so, yeah.
So you're out there on your own is what it is. Like, you got to do the job.
Yep,
Yeah.
go.
That's why during internship, you need to learn and practice and involve yourself in as many things that goes on in the school
Right.
as possible during your internship, so you can see firsthand how it works and how the flow goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you kind of have the same experience. Like there's no training, nobody trains you, nobody says you, tells you this is how your job's gonna look like. You just they give you your laptop and you're just good to go. And so you just pretty much you just learn. There's a lot of things that you just gonna learn it on the job. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna be like, oh, I feel confident. You just go with the flow, and you just do. You know, it really helps to be part of a good team. Like it does. That makes a difference. Like fortunately, I have a really good team. That the other counselors are way more experienced than me, so they kind of help me if I have any question. That's why I like being in the middle school. Because you have other counselors that you can ask them questions. We're all in the same suite, so they're next to me, so I can, hey, how would you handle this situation? You're not alone, which is good for your first year. So I had the blessing to be working in a very good team, but yeah, you just learn on the job. That's pretty much how it is.
Yeah. I agree with you guys. I know in my internship, I try to take a lot of initiative, but it's like you don't really get the full picture, especially if you don't stay in the same school for the whole year. So it's definitely like I ask a lot of questions, all that, everything you guys said.
So really finding your support system, whether it's at your school. But then we also have this built-in support system here at PBA. And so these relationships that we're forming in the classes and internships at events like this, get business cards later, like this is who you can kind of go to. I think being a part of the PBA family kind of helps with that as well.
Oh, and I do want to add, like, on the opposite spectrum of what you said, Evelyn, I kind of thought there was going to be less counseling in high school, to be honest. No, it was like a pleasant surprise, but I really thought it was going to be less based on like everything we talked about in class. Like, I don't know, in some ways school counseling is kind of played down. Like, you don't really do that much counseling, but it may depend on the school or whatever it may be. So it was like, wow, okay, well, I'm actually doing this. And I remember it was like maybe the second week of school, I called Ruth. I was like, I need you to come to my house, or I need to go to your house because I just need to like get some of this out of me because it's so much. And so having that support system, whether with your cohort or someone that's able to hold all the stuff that you can sometimes carry, although you shouldn't, but it happens, is really beneficial to have.
I agree. When I went into elementary, I was very nervous and anxious. But one of my cohorts, who's been an elementary counselor for a good long while, she had an excellent rapport with her principal. He let her offer to come to my school, my new school, to help me.
Wow.
But a lot has to do with your admin, your principal, and the relationship you have. Because whatever she says goes at her school. So she's blessed in that sense. But whenever I need anything, I text her when she wants to know stuff about high school and whether her daughter should do dual enrollment or she should take AP classes or honors classes. She'll call me and we talk. So it is the relationships that you build are lifelong here at PBA.
Absolutely. I'm going to skip this next question and move on to the speed round. Okay, so again, one word or very brief answers. So quickly, what is your preference? Being called guidance counselor or school counselor?
School counselor.
Thank you. That is the shift in the profession. We are no longer guidance counselors. We are school counselors, professional school counselors. We're certified school counselors, but it is not a guidance counselor anymore. Okay. All right, what's one thing you wish you'd known before starting your career? So one thing.
The definition of all acronyms.
Which you had spit a couple out. So learning the lingo is definitely something that happens.
I'd say
there are
the
a lot of
same.
acronyms. Okay.
The same.
Same thing, so I'm gonna say. Too many.
Victoria.
We had already said it, like that we would actually be learning on the job.
Okay. So what's one word or phrase that that you believe could serve as motivation or encouragement for those that are in the room that are considering becoming a professional school counselor?
Self-care.
Yeah.
I respect that. Resonated a little bit.
You know,
I'd say buckle your seatbelts.
I would say encouragement. You know, encouraging and pushing through
yeah,
challenges.
take it one day at a time.
Especially, so much of what you shared is, you might have an agenda, but you know, you're putting out fires, and so constantly having to be flexible and reprioritize what needs to get done and kind of balance of this absolutely has to happen, this can wait, this takes priority, right? So a lot of that just being able to roll with it, right? Okay, and so what is one thing that you got from the PBA school counseling program here?
I finally figured out what my purpose was.
Same.
I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. You know, the importance of relationship and being present.
For me, at the end of the program, I was like, I spent all this money and I thought I was gonna make more money. But I say this all the time, like, PBA could have been $1 million and it would have still been worth it because of how much I got to know myself and got to know how important it was to love myself and to grow and all of that. So what PBA did for me as an individual, there's no price tag on it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very profound.
Absolutely.
So I would like to take the opportunity to open this up to a little bit more open question and answers, just because I know that some of you might have specific questions for specific panelists, or maybe something more broad and general that you want to pose to just anyone. But I do want to give you that chance to do that now.
Evelyn, you mentioned, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Evelyn, you mentioned MTSS. That's an acronym. What?
Multi-tier support system.
That's like a test?
No. That is a process.
It's like a triage.
It's a tier of support. So let's say this class has students that are very low-level readers. We start an MTS, the teacher will start an MTSS folder for each student that is reading at a low level. And that data is tracked. After so much time, if that interventions are not working, then you move to the next tier, which is a tier 3. After a tier 3, that's when we look into maybe an ESC situation where they need an IEP, where they may have a learning disability, another health impairment. But all that data, then the MTSS, needs to be tracked by the school because the district wants that information. They want to know what kids are moving up, what kids are not, what you're doing as an intervention, if it's working, what else did you try? Because now a student cannot be staffed for an IEP unless you have a certain amount of MTSS data.
You had a hand.
Yes, this is for the whole panel. If you've worked with a school psychologist, a school social worker before, what would you say is the difference between your job and their job?
I can tell you plenty. At my school in Polk County, they don't use social workers like Osceola uses social workers. In Osceola, I had a good rapport with my social worker to do outside referrals for counseling and that type of thing. In Polk County, the social workers are basically used just for truancy because they don't have the truance officers or they don't have a truancy department. So the social worker basically has 7 schools assigned to her, and she'll come meet with me every Thursday and we go over the attendance and who has a attendance issue. We contact parents, that sort of thing. The school psychologist, she's at our school 2 days a week. She is a good person to be connected with because she will help out with parents with explaining learning disabilities to parents. When you say psychologist to a parent, it sort of carries more weight than just a school counselor or the teacher saying, your child might have a learning disability. So the school psychologist is there to lend a hand, my school psychologist is wonderful. And she's always ready and willing to help out in any aspect of that. So having a good rapport with them is a good thing.
I'd say we at Freedom, we're blessed to have a SAFE coordinator who's also a licensed social worker. And we had one prior, but she wasn't licensed. So I could see the difference even between the two, because she's trained directly in, the crisis management. She's trained in working with students that are from broken homes, and making all those like home visits and abuse calls and things like that. And her and she knows that I'm a licensed mental health, so on days when she's overwhelmed, she'll just come into my office and be like, all right, I need a minute. So I think working with her has taught me a lot about kind of that world of social work, and going to these places where a lot of us aren't even aware that these kids are homeless. So it's almost like another piece of data for us to just kind of keep in our back pocket whenever we're working with these students.
Absolutely.
So in Osceola County, the social workers usually hired by the district, and then they visit the different schools. Now I believe they have full-time social workers in high school. So in my school, we have a social worker that comes twice a week. She's stationed with us, and we have an amazing social worker because she really loves working with the students. So she really helps us a lot with threat assessment. She sees students, and she connects the students with outside resources. Usually the social workers are the best resource for that. If you want to connect them to outside sources, the social workers will help you with that. And our social worker also is running groups right now, which we can't do because we're doing lunch duty. So she takes the kids during lunch.
And very congruent.
So she's doing groups. So she's very involved. And then the school psychologist only comes once a week. I barely see him, to be honest. He visits different schools, and he's mostly school psychology is mostly testing. So if you refer, these students might have attentional concerns, they do the testing. And that's pretty much what the school psychologist does. A lot of testing, and from my experience, that's what they only there once a week, so it's very.
True, because when I was in Osceola County, I didn't even know our psychologist's name. I used to see him in the building once a week, but I didn't know his name. But at this school, it's way different.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on the school.
It depends on the school and the district too. So for us, we don't see him. We only see him when we need him for something. But that's pretty much it.
So your question was actually one of my interview questions at the district. The difference between the three. Our school social worker, she is on campus with us every single day. She serves as a part of our crisis team, like Ruth said. So she helps us with threat assessments. So our threat assessments are when a student says they want to hurt someone or they want to hurt themselves. So whenever that comes out, she's a part of our team that evaluates that. She holds groups, and then she also does like counseling interventions. So if a student is having issues with anxiety, that is kind of like minimal, we'll send them to her and she'll meet with them, and then she'll refer them to mental health services if she feels that they need additional counseling. And in Osceola, we also have a fit social worker for the whole district, and so I work with her closely. She comes and we discuss our students that are qualified as homeless. She'll check on them, on their housing situations, provide them with resources, all that stuff. And then, like you guys said, school psychologist, once a week is when I see her. And if I need her for a 504 meeting or in an MTSS meeting, she'll show up there also.
So out of three roles, which one would you say is the most hands-on with students?
I'd say the counselor.
School counselor more so than school social worker?
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
because I feel like the school counselor touches like all aspects of the child, whereas the social worker may be just addressing the emotional, mental piece, or the psychologist is only addressing the disability or whatever it may be, but we touch the whole child.
So when you think of, so these are all school-based mental health professionals, and they each have a specific role. And so in thinking about the school counselor, they're focusing on academic and career, social, emotional, types of things, right? Those are like the main areas that school counselors, and that's pretty holistic for the child, but as it pertains to the school. So the school social worker helps in the sense that, is there something going on outside of school? Can we link them to resources in the community? So, you know, do we need to send home some food this weekend, or some clothes, or, you know, they need to apply for Medicaid, or we need to refer out for specific services, right? And so they can kind of help out in that kind of way. And then the school psychologist helps with identifying, is there a learning disability? Is there, maybe, are they advanced? Are they gifted? And so each has kind of their own role. School psychologists typically have more schools that they travel to and that they touch base with, and they're trained more in like educational psych, and so it's very, it is focused more on assessments. Whereas the school social workers, there's overlap, and then it's kind of focusing on, let's connect them to resources, let's do some case management and helping the family outside of the school. And then the school counselors get to focus on, when you're here at school, how can we help you be successful academically? That sound about right?
Thank you.
Okay, so you made me think of this, so, because you had mentioned an interview question that you got. So, and I know some of us are gonna get ready to graduate and go on interviews, so maybe like one person wants to share maybe 1 or 2 questions that you were asked at your interview that maybe either stumped you or just you think would be a good question to know.
Ooh. Well, the principal that I interviewed with, he actually took on the role of a parent who was irate. And
behavioral type
yes,
of
yes,
issue right
yeah,
now.
like,
Issue right now.
he was just like, all right, let's do this. And at Freedom, you know, we have a lot of parents that give a lot of pushback when, you know, their kids are placed into AP classes, especially if they're over a certain threshold of testing, and if administration feels as though they can handle more advanced placement classes. So that is like the argument of the year with parents that come in and they're like, we don't want our kid in AP classes, you know, it's too much work, it's too much pressure. So we're constantly having to fight that battle of, they can handle it, it's for their benefit. So when I was interviewing, the principal took that role on and was, I mean, full swing role play. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I talked him down from, you know, like, you know, talk to me about how you're feeling, and I'm so happy that you're invested in your child's future, you know? Yes. So I mean, the second I started reframing it, he was like, okay. So I think when it comes to like the interview questions, I think they're gonna do a lot of scenario-based questions, because that's what you're gonna deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it's gonna look different, again, from the different school sites, you know, elementary versus high school. So I think just being ready to answer those scenario-based questions and just starting to think about what you would do in those scenarios. Cool. Now that I scared everybody.
That's good to know.
We had 2 interviews in Osceola County. So we interviewed first with the district, with the director of guidance or counseling. And those questions were like straight off ASCA, right?
Yeah.
Straight off the ASCA website. If you look on the ASCA website for school counseling interview questions, they were all there. So basically that will prepare you if you interview in Osceola County. And then we interviewed with our school administrators. That one was laid back for me. It was a lot of scenario-based questions. It wasn't anything that you can't handle based on your experience at PBA.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Okay, so as school counselors, do you counsel students with disabilities or ESC students at all?
It depends on their IEP.
Okay.
On their IEP, they're going to determine at the meeting what interventions or what accommodations the kids are going to need. We do have some kids that have behavior plans or BIPs or FBAs that are for kids that are aggressive and have been in bad situations. Sometimes they'll put in the actual IEP counseling time, counseling minutes, everything. Their interventions are minutes, increments. But a lot of times, they will have an outside source come to do that because they're probably severe behavior issues.
Seeing as how, you know, there are only so many hours a day and you're serving so many students, it's appropriate, sometimes it's, you know, I'm not the best fit for what you need, it's more than what I can provide. So kind of linking with and partnering with others that can do that and providing those referrals and resources. Any last lingering questions?
Just for brief, since you're in the Orange County, is that where you taught before?
She's not.
Oh, sorry, Osceola. I'm sorry. What was your name?
Dano.
Dano. Sorry.
It's okay.
I thought you were talking to her this whole time.
No, you're
sorry.
fine, you're fine.
So was it in Orange County that you taught before you got the guidance counseling job?
So I was a 8th grade pre-algebra teacher
At Freedom?
at Corner Lake Middle School.
Oh, okay.
So further east. So that kind of, I mean, I was really familiar with the middle school world, and I was like, I don't want to be a school counselor in middle school, just because I knew the
dynamics.
knew the dynamics.
What the
I
kids
knew,
need.
yeah. So I think going into this field, I knew that I didn't want to counsel them.
I'm sorry, if I could just add on. I'm
Yeah.
tackling another question. But for everyone, did you intern where you ended up?
Mhm.
Where you ended up working, or was there did someone intern in middle school and said no, absolutely not? You know, I want to do high school.
I interned at Parkway Middle School in Osceola County, and my second internship I did at Gateway. And there's so much good about each experience that I really was drawn to middle school, but I never imagined that I would enjoy elementary as much as I'm enjoying it. I was like, oh, should I do it? But Polk County has a lot of vacancies for school counselors. And they pay more than Osceola County.
They do.
So,
See,
That's good to know. A little bit of knowledge
They
They
there.
pay the most.
but,
so they get skills card.
yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Akes. He left Osceola County.
I've heard of him.
Okay, so he used to be the director of curriculum for Osceola County. He went to Polk County. And then Tanisha Simpson, she was the head counselor at Gateway. She was my mentor, and she's a very good friend of mine. She talked me into applying at Polk County.
Okay.
So
She's
that's-
trying to get one of my coworkers. to
Yes.
go to Polk County.
Yeah, she's recruiting. She's recruiting, yes. But I have to say that there's a vast difference between Polk and Osceola.
I mean, for even within
Yeah.
the same counties.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like she said, the FIT program, Families in Transition, in Polk County, it's called Hearth. And those kids do get certain rights when they declare them as Hearth or FIT. You can't make them transfer. You have to give them transportation to get to the school. If they're living in a hotel, the district will give them transportation to get to the school. There's a lot of services that the schools provide that are very essential to the well-being of students in the state and that are really good.
Really quick, did either of you end up where you interned?
No.
No, not in this. No.
I interned at Apopka High School, and then I got the job at Freedom. I was still in the high school setting.
Yeah.
I interned in the Boggy Creek Elementary and in Osceola, and then my second one I did at Orange County in a middle school, in Southwest Middle School. But interning in Boggy Creek helped me get the job I have now, because in Osceola County everyone knows each other.
Knows each other.
know,
Oh,
my
yes,
gosh.
everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
Well, in Orange County too.
Yeah.
So,
Had some of those experiences.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate everyone also for coming and spending time with us to celebrate this. It's a wonderful profession. It's not the easiest, but definitely has challenges and rewards. And so I hope that this was informative. I would like to take a group picture if everyone's okay with that. But really, let's a round of applause for everyone. There are beverages and snacks in the back after the picture, and then just kind of linger and hang out and have more
Sorry,
one-on-ones.
I did not bring any business cards because I was in the middle of a DCF call when I left to school today, so I ran out.